Hi students, my name is Pandika and I'm your social studies educator at Study Room. Today we are going to learn about a different topic, that is why do we need a parliament. In order to understand this topic, let's directly dive into the chapter and first understand the definition of parliament. So basically, parliament, what is a parliament? Parliament is a group of the elected representatives that are chosen by the citizens through the process of voting, all right, and the elected representatives that are chosen by the citizens of the country are known as MLAs or MP. So the elected representatives, they're either called MLAs or they are called MPs. So MLA is basically the member of the legislative assembly and MP is the member of the parliament. As of now, let's just assume that the elected representatives are either called MLAs or MPs, but in the further slides we'll also understand what is a MLA and what is a MP. All right, and the elected representatives, though, that are chosen by the citizens of the country, they are basically the ones who make the laws, right? We all know that the elected representatives make the laws in the parliament through a common consensus. All right, they basically discuss and make laws for the country. They are involved in the decision making process of the making of the laws in the country, but the citizens are also involved. How? Basically, citizens are indirectly involved in the decision making process of the law making of the country. How? Because the representatives, those are who are making the laws, they are being chosen by the citizens. So therefore, the citizens are also indirectly involved in the decision making process, because the representatives that are making the laws are chosen by the citizens. So therefore, the citizens are also indirectly involved in the decision making, but the representatives, elected representatives, are directly involved in the decision making. So we could say that Indian democracy allows citizens to participate in the decision making process. So you might have understood by now that how the Indian democracy allows the citizens to participate in the decision making process. That is by the process of voting, that they elect a representatives who they want to make the laws for the country, and those representatives makes the laws on the behalf of the citizens that have elected them. So therefore, citizens are indirectly involved in the decision making, and the MLAs or the MPs, those are the elected representatives, are directly involved in the decision making process of the country. All right, so in this slide, in the previous slide, we learned basically what is a parliament and what are the elected representatives are called and who make the laws, which are the MLAs or MPs. But here in this slide, we will basically understand as to why people are given so much power that they get to choose who will make the laws of the country and who will not. Now let's understand why should people decide and why the people are given so much power to decide. All right. So the nationalist leaders, while struggling during the independence, learned a lot from their past experiences, and they realized that it is very important for every citizen to be given the chance to get involved in the decision making process of the law making of the country, right? As they have always dreamt India as a free democratic country, and by giving the the right to every citizen to vote for their respective candidate would make India a democratic country. But in 1885, Britishers were the ones who were ruling the country according to their wish, according to their rules and regulations. But Indian National Congress back then in 1885 asked the Britishers if they could allow some elected representatives in the legislature. And fortunately, by the Government of India Act 1909, there was some elected representation that was allowed. That means some members of the society were being given the chance to vote for their representative, to elect their representative, but not the entire society. Only some parts of the society were being given the chance to vote and elect their representative. And the process by which the citizens chose their elected representatives is basically known as universal adult franchisee, which means that any person who is above the age of 18 or 18 is eligible to vote and choose their respective candidate. All right, so there are some questions that are given. The very first question says that give one reason why you think that there should be universal adult franchise. All right, So the very main reason why universal adult franchise is important is that because this process gives every citizen to be a part of the decision making process through the process of voting, that they get to elect their respective candidates that they want to make the laws for the country. So basically this process gives the citizens the chance to be a part of the decision making process of the country, which eventually will lead to more fairer decisions, and it will avoid the biased decisions and the unfair practices in the parliament. And so this will basically make the country a free democratic country. This will make India a free democratic country. All right. Okay, so the next question is, do you think there would be any difference if the class monitor was elected by the teacher or elected by the students? So I think that definitely it will make a lot of difference if the class monitor were to be chosen by the teacher and if the class monitor were to be chosen by the students. Basically, if the teacher elects the class monitor, he or she will make a decision on the basis of how good that student is in academics or how good the behavior of the student is in the class. All right, but in case the students get the chance to elect the class monitor, they will make the decision on the basis of the majority votes. Each student will be given the chance to vote for his or her particular student who they wish to become the class monitor, and that will lead to more fair decision in the class because students know more about each other than the teacher. The teacher will make a biased decision because she will only make the class monitor on the basis of how good their marks are, and so there could be a possibility that this will lead to an unfair decision in the sense that student might not be happy. So the students, if given the chance to elect the class monitor, they will make a more fairer decision because then the class monitor will be elected on the basis of the majority votes. All right, moving on to the next topic, which is people and their representatives. All right, a democracy is based on the consent of the people. People form the government through their chosen representatives. So by far we have understood that the law-making body, that is the legislature, has the elected representatives who make the laws for the country. But those elected representatives are chosen by the citizens of the country. All right. So basically the entire power lies in the hands of the citizens, because in case that those elected representatives does not gain the trust of the citizens will not elect them. And so it is very vital that the representatives who want to be chosen by the citizens gain the trust of the citizens, because then the citizens will elect for them. So here the democracy is based on the concept of the people, and people form the government through their chosen representatives is very true, because citizens and people of the country are the most important part, that because they are being given the right to choose the representatives who are going to make the laws for the country. So here therefore we can say that people form the government because they are the ones who choose the representatives that are going to make the laws in the parliament. All right, moving on to some questions. So the very first question says that use the term constituency and represent to explain who an MLA is and how the person gets elected. So you very well know that the elected representatives who is chosen by the citizens of the country who make the laws in the parliament is known as MLA. MLA is the member of the Legislative Assembly. So let's understand that what is a Legislative Assembly, that what is a member of a Legislative Assembly. Alright, so let's assume that Delhi, right? Delhi has been divided into various small regions. There is a state government for Delhi and there are different regions in Delhi, and in each region there is a constituency, there is a Alright, so let's understand basically. So basically, let's understand who is a MLA. So MLA is member of Legislative Assembly. All right. Legislative Assembly basically refers to the state of parliament. Now you guys know that the parliament as a whole is for the entire country, right? So Legislative Assembly, which is the state of parliament, is basically for the state government, for the governance of the state government, which includes the chief minister of a state and the other ministers, all right? So that is basically the state of parliament, and MLA is the member of the state of parliament. Now let's understand it. Basically, let's take an example of a state, all right? So let's say Himachal Pradesh, right? Himachal Pradesh. Himachal Pradesh as a whole is a state, right? But there will be small regions. Now this is Himachal Pradesh, and there are very little small regions in the entire Himachal Pradesh, all right? So let's say that there are 68 small regions. We cannot make 68 regions over here, but let's assume that there are 68 small regions like this, all right? And each small region is called as a constituency. So there is this entire state Himachal Pradesh. This is Himachal Pradesh, and there are small regions in Himachal Pradesh which are known as constituency. Now let's understand. Constituency is basically a smaller region in the entire state, and there are 68 constituencies in Himachal Pradesh. Now we all know that there is a state government of the entire state. Let's say that it is Aam Aadmi Party. We're just assuming, all right? Let's say that the state government in Himachal Pradesh is of Aam Aadmi Party. So there will be a chief minister too, all right? Yeah. So let's say that Himachal Pradesh as a whole, there is a state government in Himachal Pradesh, and there is a chief minister in Himachal Pradesh who belongs to the government Aam Aadmi Party, because there the state government of Himachal Pradesh is Aam Aadmi Party. We're just assuming it, all right? Now, since there are different constituencies in the entire state, there are small regions which are called as constituencies. We said that there are 68 constituencies. So in this case, all the smaller regions will have their own elected representatives, all right? That means that if there are 68 constituencies, each constituency will have their own elected representative. That means that there are 68 elected representatives, and all the representatives are elected by the citizens of the country through the process of voting. Now what I'm actually trying to say over here is that each constituency have elections, and the representatives who are elected by the citizens are basically what happens is that in each constituency now there is an elected representative, and that elected representative is elected by the people. Now for example, there are 68 small regions. Let's take an example of only one region. Let's say there is small region. There are 6 candidates who want to get elected, get elected as an elected representative of that small region. So what is the work of that elected representative? That person will govern that small area, that small region of that entire state. So there are 6 candidates who want to get elected as an elected representative, and that elected representative is called as MLA. He wants to get elected as the MLA of that particular small region, all right? So let's assume that there are 6 candidates who want to get elected. At the end of the election, they will see that whosoever has got the majority of the votes will be announced as the elected representative of that small region. So in the similar pattern, there will be 68 elected representatives, because there are 68 constituencies in Himachal Pradesh, all right? And all the elected representatives who have been elected for their small regions will be called as MLA. MLA, that is member of the Legislative Assembly. Now at the end of the election, they will count that, for example, there is a small region and their person won, all right? The person has won the election, that person has become the elected representative for that small region. Now the government will see that that elected representative belonged to which government. It belonged to the Aam Aadmi Party, that candidate was a part of the Aam Aadmi Party or Bharatiya Janata Party or which party, all right? And at the end of the election, they will basically make a calculation as to, let's say that 41 candidates, the elected representatives, belong to Aam Aadmi Party, 21 belong to BJP and the rest belong to whatever the number is, belongs to the INS, that is the Indian National Congress Party. Alright. Now in this case we see that at the end we had 68 constituency in Himachal Pradesh, out of which the elected representatives, obviously we have 68 constituencies, we will have 68 elected representatives at the end of the day, right? In those 68 elected representatives, 41 representatives belong to Aam Aadmi Party, 21 belonged to BJP. So in this case, the party that have come in majority, the party which have the maximum elected representative, the members of those party, the elected representative of those party will basically select a chief minister amongst them. So all the elected representative of all the small regions, whosoever has been elected, will be called as the elected representative of that particular region, is called the member of the Legislative Assembly. And now I've also explained that how the person gets elected. Basically through the process of voting for each small region, there are voting, people elect. For example, 6 candidates want to get selected, though they will stand in the election, they will do campaign for themselves, then people will elect them. An election for every small region will be different, and for each smaller region there will be different elections. There will be different candidates who will stand out to get elected in different regions, and people will vote them. And at the end of the day, for each small region, the government will get the result out that which candidate has won from each small region, right? So this is known as, this person who gets selected at the end of the day for each region is known as the member of the Legislative Assembly. And the smaller regions in the entire state is called as the constituency. Each constituency gets an elected representative, which is called MLA, that is member of the Legislative Assembly. I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Alright, moving forward, discuss the difference between State Legislative Assembly and Parliament. So State Legislative Assembly is basically the state parliament, the government which is basically governs the state, which includes the chief minister of each state, which includes the ministers. Alright, now what is the basic difference between the State Legislative Assembly, that is state of parliament, and the parliament of the entire country? Alright, so as I told you, let's discuss it with, let me explain you this with an example. Alright, okay, so this is let's say that this is state of legislative, state legislative, line, and parliament. Alright, okay, so the members of the state legislative are called as MLAs. We discussed that in the previous slide. And the members of the parliament are known as MP, the member of the parliament. This is the first difference amongst the two. The second difference is that, since we discussed in the previous slide that all the smaller regions, like there are this, if this is the whole state, there are smaller regions in the states which are called as constituencies, and each constituency have a MLA, which is the elected representative. But what is the member of parliament? Basically this is the entire state and there are small regions, and this is the MLA of this particular constituency. So MP is basically, MP comprises of all the MLAs that are in the state. MLA is of just one constituency, and MP comprises of all the MLAs that are in the state. That is quite evident. The third point that we are going to study is quite evident, that the size of this one constitution is smaller as compared to the size of all the constituencies. So the size is smaller, and here the size is bigger. And third and the fourth and the last point of the difference is that basically these MLAs, now all the MLAs that have been elected by the common consensus, by the general agreement, elects one chief minister amongst all of them. All the MLAs that have been selected chooses to choose one chief minister by their common consensus. For example, like I told you that there are 68 constituencies and the 41 belonged to Aam Aadmi Party. Let's assume that that says this means that the majority party over here is Aam Aadmi Party, because most of the representatives that have been elected belonged to Aam Aadmi Party. So all those 41 MLAs can basically decide the chief minister amongst them. All right. So chief minister gets elected through the MLAs, and the MPs basically select the head of the union cabinet. Now we'll understand what is union cabinet in the other slides, but just now let's assume that all the MPs chooses the head of the union cabinet. So the very first point was that the members of the state legislative are known as MLAs, the member of the legislative assembly and the members of the parliament are called as MP, the member of parliament. Simply, the second one says that the elected representative of the each one is called as MLA. And over here MPs are basically comprises of all the MLAs. So this is quite evident that the size of one constituency is quite small, and the size of, because MP is basically, parliament basically comprises of all the MLAs. So the size of the parliament is quite bigger because it includes all the constituencies. So this is quite evident that if this is the parliament, it includes all the constituencies, so the size is quite bigger. And MLAs decide the chief minister, and the member of parliament decides the head of the union cabinet. Moving forward. All right. From the list below, identify the work of the state and central government, the decision to maintain peaceful relations with China. So this is the very first point. Now, since here it is an international matter with some other country, so this is quite evident that the central government, who looks for the entire country, will obviously have to work on this matter. B, the decision of the Madhya Pradesh government to discontinue the board exams in class 8 for all the schools under this board. So basically this is a state matter, because this matter is only belonged to one state, that is Madhya Pradesh. This is just a state matter, so the state government will look after this work. Introducing train connections from Ajmer to Mysore. This again is a state matter, from Ajmer to Mysore, so again the state government will look after it. Introduction of a new 1000 rupee note. Again, this 1000 rupee note will be introduced for the entire country, so this is quite evident that the central government will look after it. Next question. Most elected members, whether in the Panchayat or the Vidhan Sabha or the Parliament, are elected for a fixed period of 5 years. Why do we have a system where the representatives are elected for a fixed period and not for the lifetime? Now basically, why the members of the parliament are not elected for more than 5 years, or any member is not elected for more than the period of 5 years, is because since the citizens have here the right to elect their representatives, basically the government also gives the citizens a chance to change their elected representatives in case they does not work up to their expectations and they does not work hard enough to stay long in the government. That is why this government gives the very fair chance to the citizens to change their government in case they does not work up to their expectations, does not work properly, they make unfair decisions or whatever. So in case that it does not work properly, the citizens have the right to change them after 5 years. So that is why the government of the India has given the citizens this chance that they could change the members, the elected representatives, after 5 years in case that they does not meet their expectations and does not meet the promises that they have made before getting selected in order to get selected. Alright. People participate in other ways and not just through elections to express approval or disapproval of the actions of the government. Can you describe 3 ways? Alright. So the very first way, you know that through voting, they basically involve themselves and they participate through elections. If they vote in favor, that means that they are showing approval. If not, that means that they are showing disapproval. There are other ways too than voting, which are the very first is we all know that nowadays there is a lot of impact of social medias, and so people participate through social media, through commenting on social media, their views, their opinions on Instagram, Twitter, etc., on the other social media. So people participate nowadays a lot through social media. Now the very second one is that people sometimes make, do protests in case that they does not like any of the government's new policies or laws. They protest, they form groups of people and they protest against the laws of the government. So this is one of the ways that people participate, right? And the very third one is, the third way is to basically participate by doing debates on the television. Basically, if you might have noticed that people participate in the debates on television, on the news channel, to express their opinions, to participate in the in the decision making process by debating on the television. If you might have noticed that debates happen on the news channels. So this is the third way by which people can participate, people can express their opinions. So I hope that you understood. And this brings us to the end of this video. We'll connect in the next video, and thank you so much for joining on Study Room.